The Nigerian economy has been a subject of great interest and scrutiny for economists, investors, and policymakers alike in 2023. The economy had its fair share of challenges and opportunities in the year amid global headwinds. But as the year 2023 winds down, it is important to take stock of the current state of the economy and assess the prospects for the year 2024. I have no one present in the house to do this. The Chief Executive Officer, Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, Dr. Muda Yusuf. He's live in the studio. Good afternoon, Merry Christmas to you, sir.
Good afternoon to you. Merry Christmas to you.
While preparing for this chat with you, there's a lot of issues in the place when we want to look at this, what has happened this year. A lot of policy moves, a lot of macroeconomic issues that we faced as a country. So I'm thinking of where we really need to pick it up from. But inflation at the moment is higher than the cocoa house in Ibadan, like Paul Alaje would say. But with all of this, what do you make of the key issues that have shaped this economy in 2023? Which do you think we can start with? Let me allow you to do that because it's a lot.
Yes, there are a lot of issues. But if you can take it in some kind of sequence,
okay,
in the way they happened. The Naira redesign issue was at least the first major blow that we had in the first quarter of this year. It created a whole lot of problems, disrupted trade and all of that. Then of course, shortly in the middle of that, we had the elections. Elections too came with all manner of issues, uncertainty about what is going on in the economy, the risks and all of that, expectations about the outcomes, risk around, insecurity, how the elections will go and so on and so forth. So that in a way also shaped the expectations of investors and in a way also affected the confidence of investors in the first quarter of this year. Then the major issues that we had in 2023, were the reforms. Two major reforms. The foreign exchange reform, which is the unification of the exchange rate, and the fuel subsidy removal. Those were two major reforms that had far-reaching implications, for businesses and for the citizens, because of the very wide ramifications of their impact. These reforms were necessary, they were inevitable, but unfortunately they came with a lot of pains, almost, disproportionate to what many of us expected. We never expected that the shock of those reforms would be as much as it was. If you take the exchange rates convergence, many of us who are economists have advocated for it, given all the challenges that characterized the previous foreign exchange regime, the corruption, the round-tripping, and all manner of, transparency issues. So it was a policy that was necessary, and you can see, even from your reports, you can see the impact of the exchange rate reform on revenue. You are talking about over $1 trillion in 6 months. These are monies that we have been losing to a lot of people who are just playing smart within the ecosystem of the foreign exchange markets. So, but again, because the economy is also highly import dependent,
yes,
it created a lot of challenges for many businesses. It increased the cost of production. It also contributed to the high inflationary pressure. But in a way, it's also helping to restructure the economy. It's helping to compel an inward-looking economy. It's helping to, promote the whole concept of backward integration. It's helping to promote the idea of import substitution. These are some of the structural implications of that reform. Apart from the issues of abuse that the arbitrage was creating. So it has very strong structural implications as well. Because even as we speak, we see that companies that have generally high level of local content, are able to to weather the storm a lot better
Yes.
than those who are heavily exposed to foreign exchange. And a lot of citizens and businesses are also looking towards import substitution. Although it's a very slow process, but that is the signaling that reform had brought. Then, of course, we had the fuel subsidy removal, which also had a very big impact on the quality of lives, on inflation, and all of that. Again, this was a reform that was inevitable because you couldn't have continued along the trajectory of the previous administration. If you had continued that way, the economy will just completely be brought to its knees. Wow. So it was a very important reform. Of course, we are seeing the impact of that on prices. We are seeing the impact on transportation. We are seeing the impact on welfare. We are seeing the impact on the costs of living, cost of production, and all of that. So, but gradually, I think we will soon get over it. Now that we are talking about prospect of less importation of petroleum products, because the impact was that severe, because we are importing practically everything, all our petroleum products, into the country. So, if we take what is happening globally to energy prices, alongside the implications that the foreign exchange depreciation was having on importation. Those two factors, created a major problem of high energy costs, which affected practically everybody. But now, with the prospects that we are seeing of increased refining of petroleum products in the country, right? Yes, by the Dangote refinery, the government-owned refinery, and some other modular refineries. If the government is able to support them as much as it can, so that by first quarter of next year, we're able to depend less on importation of petroleum products. I mean, that will go a long way, So those two issues were very, very critical. And of course, we have high inflationary pressures. Inflationary situation that we haven't seen in close to 2 decades. Honestly. And the impact, of course, is felt everywhere.
And budget is projected to for 2024 at about 20%. Well, that looks like a tall order to me.
Yes. So we are hoping that in the new year, we are likely to see a slowing down of inflation.
Okay.
Given the fact that we are beginning to see some reform. But inflation was a major issue, in the current year, driven, of course, by costs of production, energy costs, the FX depreciation, and of course, some legacy issues as well, especially around the monetization of deficit, that's the ways and means finances, which got up to about 23 trillion
at
a point. And that, of course, had implications for our debt position. So that was also highly inflationary. And the good news is that the current CBN governor has also given indication that as much as possible, the ways and means finances, or what we call the monetization of deficit, will be kept within the statutory limits as stipulated in the CBN Act. I think it has been adjusted now from 5% of actual revenue to about 15% of actual revenue of the previous year. So if the CBN is able to keep within those statutory limits, we're also likely to see an improvement in the macroeconomic environment, especially with respect to inflation. So those are the key issues. Of course, they have systemic effects. They have economy-wide effects. They had a very serious effect on the welfare of the people. And we are looking and hoping that in 2024, the situation will be less severe, and we expect to see less pain as far as the economy is concerned.
A lot of expectations from government. Many will say subsidy removal, government should have more money to spend at this time. We also see FAC. There's an improvement in what is coming up from that end. So how do we see, I've asked these questions and I also like your view on the same issue, the subnationals supporting the federal government with empowerment programs, with instituting projects that would impact impact the people, the vulnerable ones at this time. Government social investment programs cannot cover everyone. The cash transfers and all of that. So how do you see everyone working to achieve the same goal, inclusive growth?
Yes, that is very important, because one of the positive outcomes of the fuel subsidy removal, apart from the revenue effect, there is also the investment effect, because it's supposed to spur a lot more private investment in the downstream oil sector. Now, coming to the issue of revenue, there is need for a lot more transparency and accountability, at all levels of government, so that the citizens can feel, the impact of this additional revenue, because practically every citizen is making sacrifice,
Yes.
as a result of this fuel subsidy removal. And when we are making sacrifices, we expect to see some returns, so some evidence of why we are making the sacrifices. So that is why it is important. From the report you have shown, FAC revenue has increased,
Yes.
FAC allocation has also increased, and in fairness to some states, we are beginning to see some spending that is impacting some, people, civil servants, generally. But again, just as you said, the principle of inclusion is extremely very important, so that the benefits of the increased revenue is not just limited to civil servants who are on the payroll of government.
Yeah.
It's one that will impact everybody. So we need to be seeing a lot more investment in infrastructure, particularly rural infrastructure. We need to be seeing a lot more support for the dominant economic activities in each state. If a state is basically an agrarian state where you have a lot of farmers, we expect to see some support for those farmers. If it's made of either business people, small traders, we need to see a lot of support. If it is made up of fishermen and all of that, so the support should be tailored to meet the needs of the people, particularly the vulnerable segments of society. Then issues of transportation. But more importantly, is for the citizens to also, be more active in demanding accountability. The State Assembly have a major role to play. The citizens should also be asking questions. That, okay, we have seen an improvement in FAC allocation at the local government level, at the state level.
Yeah.
Can you please account?
Yeah.
So the citizen participation is very key, because that's a major component of democracy, which we have not sufficiently activated. We don't just see democracy as just going to vote and going back. No. After voting, people have been sworn in.
Hold them accountable.
They take custody of resources.
Yes.
Then we have to ask questions how they are spending the money.
Beautiful.
But that inclusive approach, to dispensing or to appropriating resources is extremely very, very important.
One thing we must do better in Nigeria is improve trade. Trade facilitation is key at this time. What are those things that you think we can do? Now, you're the board member of the Nigerian Customs Service now. Congratulations on that appointment too. But what more are you thinking along that line? How can we make trade seamless? Not just across the African continent. I think globally. How can we?
Globally, yes. First of all, let me say that the president himself is very passionate about issues of trade facilitation. If you observe his statements during his tour around talking to investors, he repeated it severally about the fact that he was going to remove barriers to investment, barriers to trade. And when we talk about trade facilitation, it's not just about those who are trading. It's something that impacts all sectors of the economy. Whether you are in service sector, whether you are in manufacturing, because you have to import raw materials, you have to export, you have to import machineries, you have to import equipment. No matter what sector you are, ensuring seamless trade, particularly international trade, is very, very critical. So, and the good news is that the current chairman of the Customs Board, which is the finance minister, the current CG of Customs, Adeni, they are all very passionate about the issues of trade facilitation. As we speak, I think the CG has recently disbanded what we call the CG strike force, which used to be in the custom, used to patrol and harass people. That has been disbanded. Then he has also disbanded what we call the Area Command Task Force. It's also rationalizing all the customs checkpoints across the country to reduce all these impediments to trade. And more importantly, he has put forward a proposal to ensure a more credible dispute resolution system. Before now, if you have a dispute with the customs, you lodge your complaint to customs. That is a situation where the person or the customs is a judge in his own case. But he's taking steps now to reverse that, so that we have a dispute resolution system that is more credible, that will also have private sector representation, which is a very good development, because I know what people go through when they have disputes on valuation, on classification, and on all those issues, arise from trade. So if you have a credible dispute resolution system that is more transparent, that is more independent, that is a major step forward. Then, of course, he's also looking at the issue of, making the whole process technologically driven, reducing human interface, accelerating the process of this single window. And the minister, too, is very passionate about ensuring that you have a system that is driven by technology, that reduces human interface. That will reduce the risk of corruption, yes, that will make the processes a lot more transparent. So these are some of the things that the customs is doing. Now that we are there as private sector representative, we also have to ensure that this thing actually brings value to the economy through the private sector. So that is very key.
What's your outlook in 2 minutes?
Is that?
Your outlook for the economy in 2 minutes. 20
well, the outlook, given the steps that have been taken,
yes,
I believe that the situation or the economy in 2024 is likely to be much better than what we experienced in 2023. I have a sense that the worst is probably over. And given the fact that we're expecting an increase in domestic refining of petroleum products,
that's key. That
will reduce the pressure on our foreign exchange and on our reserves. Because right now we are spending between $1 billion to $1.5 billion monthly to be importing petroleum products. If we're able to take that pressure off, that will be significant. And there's a lot of progress also being made around issues of import substitution. The CBN is committed to playing by the rules. The CBN governor has emphasized the importance of compliance and moderating all these ways and means finances, which had a very significant impact on the macroeconomic environment, which is also fueling inflation. Then all the efforts around combating oil theft. If we're able to ramp that up, and the government is also committed to doing a lot of that, then we're also likely to see a lot more improvement in our balance of payments position. And that will help, in a way to also stabilize the foreign exchange. And the CBN is also accelerating its process to clear the backlog of Forex. The moment we're able to get through that, I think the CBN will be in a much better position in 2024, to be able to intervene better in the foreign exchange market and help to stabilize the foreign exchange market. So I think the prospects are much better. The shocks are not likely to be as much as the kind of shocks that we experienced in 2023. That's my outlook.
I must thank you so much for your time, CEO, Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, Dr. Muda Yusuf. Thank you for being with us this Christmas day. We really appreciate this.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
All right.